Well, it says we've been live for 8 seconds, but I don't see me yet. Oh, there we're back to 4. There we are. We're at 10 and 11. Hey guys, welcome. Got one. Mm-hmm. Jonathan says, hi everyone. Hi, Jonathan. First one in. Good. Good for you. Luna says, hi, how are you doing? I'm doing pretty good. Didn't get a whole bunch of sleep last night, but, it happens from time to time. Ian's doing good too, as far as we know. We're just sort of going along. TV Movie says, hello. Hi, TV Movies. How are you doing? We have a little bit of sun right now. It was raining earlier, so. Jonathan says, hello to Luna. Okay. Ah. So we were sort of surprised that the Super Bowl Sunday didn't affect our live chat last week at all. I'm thinking, you guys are more like us. We don't care about football. Hi, Aaron. How are you?
I've never been a sports fan. BattleBots is it for me.
Yeah. I was telling Ashley about that this morning, too. The reason we like it is because things get destroyed, but no one gets hurt. No people are hurt, only machines. Some of them very spectacularly.
Yep.
This season, especially. It fell apart into 5 pieces. That was a never before seen event on BattleBots. Yep. Guess we like our competition safe. No people were injured in the production of this thing.
The technology appeals to me, figuring out how they're doing things.
Jonathan says, how are you doing, Luna? Dog barks.
So I think nobody wrote any questions this week.
No, I just checked. I checked my email, I checked my Facebook. Nothing in particular. Luna says, sounds like Robot Wars, probably the UK version. Yes, undoubtedly, because the BattleBots takes winners from other robot war places, and then they all come together in Las Vegas, I guess, is where they do that. And they have the giant nut. That's what you win. It's a big giant nut. Which we think is pretty hokey, but hey, they have fun. So it's always fun to have fun, see people having fun. Yeah. I think there's only one reality TV show we watch. We don't watch very many of those because we don't care for them in particular. We started watching the second season of Skinwalker Ranch, which we find interesting, but we sure wish they would be more interesting when they're showing it to us. We're waiting for something to happen.
They're complaining how about everything might kill them or injure them or disease them or something.
Yeah, and how terrified they are. We're like, okay. Linda says, I'm doing well, thank you, Jonathan. Just busy with a few things. Angela says, Siofra and chat. Hello, everyone. Blessings. Hi, Angela. Great start for the weekend. How is everyone today? Doing all right. We are doing okay. I started trying to make another hat, which was really funny. I knitted or crocheted a Mobius strip. It got twisted when I joined the stitches, and it kept happening over and over and over again. So I decided to cheat, and I just did the row open and then put it together, and then I'm going to stitch the bottom together when I'm done, because I don't know why with this particular one I can't seem to get a straight row. It's hysterical. But my granddaughter had never heard of a Mobius strip before, so I made her one so she could see what it was like. So Jonathan says, have you guys noticed that all astrologers look the same? They're like the same person. I researched astrology this week. Ian, do you know Christopher Warnock? I think you'd like him.
No, I don't. I've never been able to get into astrology, probably because my math skills suck. No matter how hard I try, they suck.
Angela says it was not meant to be a hat. Well, no, it is going to be a hat, whether it's meant to be or not, because I'm stubborn. And then she adds, "Hi, Luna Rockwood, cool name." And Angela says, "I have not heard of a Mobius strip either." Well, it's a fun experiment to do. Get yourself a long piece of paper, a nice strip of paper, and when you go to put the paper together, instead of putting it together the way you would expect, you twist one end and then tape it. And then take a pencil or a pen or whatever and start drawing a line, and you will cover both sides with one line. And it's just way cool. I don't know its significance in math or science or something like that, but it's just a way cool thing.
I don't know if it has any significance.
Okay, we thought you would know that when Ashley and I were talking about it this morning.
Sorry.
And who named it? Is it some dude named Mobius that discovered that and named it?
I expect.
Oh, so we don't know about that either for sure.
Not Morbius, so.
It's Mobius.
Yeah, Morbius. You know, the
he's the nightmare or dream
No.
guy, or no?
Never mind.
Okay. Different subject altogether. So,
Superhero movies.
I figured it was superhero. So, Luna said at Angela, thank you. Angela says, astrology is like onions to me. It makes me cry in frustration. Sprout little white hairs.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, I can get behind that. TV Movie says, I don't know if you ever talked about it, but what is your opinion about earning money from metaphysics, tarot magic, etc.? Dion Fortune is against it, but some magicians say it's okay. What's your opinion?
Well, first, Dion Fortune was a little prudish and uptight.
Well, there's that.
My opinion.
And didn't she already have family money that supported her? I mean,
Yeah,
people have different reasons for being supportive or non-supportive one way or the other, and one of them, ironically, has to do with my mother brought this up one time. She plays the Celtic harp, and she is a lovely harpist, and she was taught that if you used your gift for monetary gains, then God would take your gift away. So I think that has something to do with the roots of that by accepting money somehow you're cheapening it or defiling it or whatever, and then the gods will get angry and take away your ability. I don't think that's actually true unless you sincerely believe that that's true, and then you make it happen. But I think that, in the old days, the days I remember before now, if you were a mystic, a magical person, a healer, or whatever, the community that you were born into took care of you. So your physical needs were met. They would build you a house. They would give you food in exchange for what you were doing. So in the barter system, we were always being paid for what we did, one way or the other. And unfortunately, at this point, we don't have that kind of a system set up. I remember when I was younger being very annoyed, remembering how it used to be and how it wasn't like that anymore. And now I had to actually get a job and earn an income and still do all that stuff. And so, yeah, I think it's a personal choice. I'm personally not opposed to it. I know that there are some groups that are, they say the way they get around it is you're charging not for the lesson or for the magic, but you're charging for the materials and the time, which I think comes out to be the same thing. I think that's just sort of mental gymnastics in order to make it work in their philosophy or their whatever their belief system happens to be. And with my mother, I took that approach because she was very worried about, charging for playing the harp for people. Although, she had to drag her harp everywhere, she had to take time out, and I told her, I says, you're not having them pay you for playing the harp and for them enjoying the music and receiving that gift. You're paying them, they're paying you, so for you taking time out of your life when you could be doing something else that you might rather do, like do dishes or laundry or go shopping or go to the movies or go out with friends, whatever it might be. and you're putting your entire life on hold for a period of time so that you can be there for them and they can enjoy this gift. And that actually made sense to her. So that helped. And then she got someone to help her charge the money because she couldn't actually come up with how to charge people money, and it made her very uncomfortable. It's probably my father's influence, because I've had my own issues with that, because he always made you have to like justify, work for, and somehow earn your allowance or whatever it happened to be. And being in control of the finances and so forth, that was one of his power plays, even on the children. So, all right. So Joy says hello from Michigan. Hi, Joy. We have quite a few people in Michigan. I think that's awesome. Jonathan says Mobius strip is a 3D infinity symbol. Yeah, I guess that would be. Shay says, hello all on my lunch break. Good to hear you, see you, read you. Hi, Shay. Temple Tarot says hi. And Ian said hi to Shay. So, I'm caught up. Apparently I was having a good conversation. Yeah, so, I mean, I think there are certainly people that can take advantage of others in, like, that aren't actually doing the thing they're advertising that they do, just like in um, any kind of a career. You know, you have good doctors and bad doctors, good dentists, bad dentists, good acupuncturists, bad acupuncturists. It doesn't matter what it is. So in the field of magic and psychics and so forth, you're going to have some unscrupulous people, and you're going to have some really good quality people that aren't going to try and take advantage of you.
Probably a few self-deluded ones who think they're doing something for you but really aren't.
Yeah, well, there's always those. So Joey D says, how does one discover their spiritual purpose? According to some, your soul agrees to do some mission or fulfill a purpose, but I can't remember mine if I did. Okay, so that's one of the ways that we get sort of caught up in trying to understand why we're here and so forth. And I don't know that it's true or not true that we have decided before we're born that we're going to do something. I did have an experience sort of similar to that, where I was on shrooms at the time, but it was like all these thought forms popped out of the back of my head, and I got to see like my fear of everything, like everything, fear of success, fear of failure. Everything has its opposite kind of fear, which was kind of interesting. But in the middle of that, there was this bright white light that appeared and said that, said, this is what you agreed to do when you came here. And I said, no, I don't think I can do that. And so it said, that's fine. You're never actually required to do it. But because you've decided you can't do it, we're going to take your memory of it away from you so you don't feel guilty about not doing whatever it was. And then I didn't know what it was. So who knows? I personally think the best thing we can do is to just try and become ourselves and work on ourselves and become a good person, a quality individual, and look around wherever we happen to live and wherever we are. If there's something that we can chip in and help take care of, then that would be a good purpose. And it doesn't have to be like a saving the world kind of thing at all. It's like life is a gift, and if we don't enjoy it, then we're not getting it. So that's my advice anyway, regardless of anyone saying anything else. So Angela says, blessed be and love to everyone. Violet says, did you get it, Angela? Did you get what? Okay, I guess that's a conversation I'm not remembering. Joyce C. Jean says, what is the purpose of ceremonial magic, either in the Western mystery tradition or in Wicca? So do you want to say something about that?
Well, sure. Ceremonial magic offers some different benefits. For one thing, if it's ceremonial, you assume you repeat it multiple times, and that builds up the strength of what you do. For example, you're doing the banishing ritual of the pentagram. The more you do it, the more effective it gets. That's one of the purposes of ceremonial magic, and one of the purposes of it also are the fact that tools are usually used. So, for example, with a willpower wand, you charge that up so you don't have to muster. If you need to muster all your willpower at once, and you just tired or worn out or something and you can't really, then the wand will help you greatly with that. So the use of the tools is very helpful. A lot of the ceremonial stuff are done as plays, depending what type of ceremony you're talking about. Like the Masonic rites use the death and rebirth of their theoretical Hiram Abiff as to make their ceremonies around, so they're reliving this fictional death and rebirth of their hero, so to speak. And it can be like that, where you can draw on old energies from old rituals and things also, and bring that up by using the same ceremonies and practicing in the same ways people in the past did.
And it definitely gives you a very specific kind of structure to work within that, has proven itself in history and time and so forth as being a structure. And of course, it's in Wicca because the people who started Wicca were ceremonial magicians to begin with. And interestingly enough, a lot of people in Wicca don't remember that, or don't know that, or won't acknowledge that. We had some interesting conversations with one of the Wiccan high priestesses here in our area, who was like, ceremony magic was bad and evil and dark and all this other stuff, and we're like, what? You do know that you're doing ceremonial magic when you're calling the quarters and so forth. But yeah, so there's often a misunderstanding of it, and for me, it's like the strict ceremonial stuff that's got so much Christian mysticism and imagery and so forth in it that I don't care for it much.
Western ceremonial stuff.
Right. And
but a lot other stuff can be considered ceremonial where the term isn't necessarily used for it.
Yeah, but that's what I'm talking about. So I'm not particularly interested in that, hermetic ceremonial magic kind of thing. But I use a lot of the principles that they have. I have a structure that I use. I cast a circle. I call in the directions. I repeat rituals. And the whole point of ritual in any event is as a means to communicate with your subconscious and to help reshape your own mind and give it something to, like, I don't know, grasp and so forth in order to understand some concepts and things. And it is also about that self-development kind of stuff. So, all right, look 5 up, she says. 5 up. I saw the thing about astrology. That's the only thing that Angela has said. And we talked about that, so. And then she said, blessed be. So if she needs to re-ask a question, that's fine. So Gary says, hello, Siofra and Ian and everyone. Did some thinking on your last video. Good stuff. Saw a lot of crows today. Yay. Thank you. Well, I did too. Sometimes I see a lot of crows. They really like those peanuts.
I want to know where Shay found that bee emoji. I've been looking on here for one and I can't find it.
Well, I don't know where people get all their emojis, but it's pretty cute. Blessed bees.
Yeah.
Ruth says, hi all. Whoops, come back here. So Angela says that Violet, hi Violet, I put my email on my YouTube channel if you want to go find it. And no, I didn't. Violet was going to tell me about her invocation of Medusa. That almost sounds like what happened at the Good Friday Mass when I used to go to Catholic Church, when we would all read and reenact a bit without getting out of our seats, the trial of Jesus. I always felt so uncomfortable during that Mass, because I'd break down and sob and all the feels would hit me. My family didn't get why I was crying. That's because you're an empath. Yeah, we do that. Violet says, it must be my Safari platform. I barely make a comment, then I fly back up to see your face again. Okay. Vanessa says, hello everyone. Hi Vanessa V, how are you doing? Yeah, so That's one of the things that I love about the path that we're on, is that we can shape it to suit us, our quirks and personality and our subconscious and our experiences, and what works with us and what doesn't work with us, kind of like our diets. Everyone's different, and what works really well for one person isn't necessarily going to work for anyone else. But I like the idea of having a structure that you're putting things in, because that way, it's like you can't build a roof on a house without a foundation and without walls. And so I see magic ritual of all kinds as that, is like you're building a structure, and then you're containing it, you're putting something inside of it, decorating it, filling it up with energy, whatever it might be, so then you can do something with it. So, you found the bee?
Yeah.
He found the bee. He's very happy.
Oh.
So, all right.
Sorry.
So, Emmy Love says, hi, Siofra, Ian, and all. I also take principles from Hermeticism and ceremonial magic, but I can't do anything too structured or it doesn't feel natural. Feels like a show. Well, yeah. It is a show kind of thing. Violet says, I was trying to connect with her, but I cannot find you, Angela. I could use a spiritual friend on the outside. I struggle with a fiery neighbor that hates me right now. Oh, I'm sorry. That's no fun. Kevin says, could you please recommend a good book to read to help me start on my journey? I did a video on books. So look up the book video, and other people have done recommendations in the comments of the video, because there's a lot of good books to get started. It all depends on what you're interested in. So then Violet continues, I write when I communicate, and it was an epic fail. It comes out wrong. I want to protect myself from her so she does not call the police. Well, that would suck, having the police called on you for no good reason. Angela says, I'm sorry, Violet, just put my name in the YouTube search bar and look for the picture. I couldn't find yours when I looked either. Sometimes they are cooperative and sometimes they're not, but today we can't blame Mercury for it. Kevin says, haha, sorry, I would look that up, thank you. You're welcome. I mean, it's like, not everyone knows all the videos that I've put up. I've put up quite a few at this point. So there are a lot of subjects out there. There's also, like beginner witchcraft, how do I start kind of thing, which can give you some ideas too. You might want to look at that one as well, because that'll, give you some more thoughts on some of the different paths that you can start and take. And the thing is, you can start one way and then decide it's not for you, and in the process, though, end up finding something that is. So you don't have to make an ultimate decision that if I make this choice, this is it for the rest of my life. It's a very growing and evolving kind of practice. And it will evolve and grow to be what you need. So.
Well, I don't know why this thing from Angela came up censored.
You want me? I can hit show. I don't see anything.
Did that.
Okay, I don't see anything wrong with that.
No, I don't either.
Sorry about the YouTube police department. Angela says, we cannot. It's just the tube of you being a fool. I'm in the broom closet. My family is Catholic and think only Catholics go to heaven and everyone else will burn. I sigh and shake my head and do my thing separately. They see me as a fantasy geek. That's not a bad cover, though.
That's true.
Yeah. I mean, you can say, I believe in unicorns, and they'll go, yeah, isn't that cute, Or sweet, or fairies, or whatever. Yeah, because they won't understand. I mean, belief systems are powerful. When people wholeheartedly have given themselves over to them, it's like they're not going to understand. No matter how clear you are, no matter how well you explain it, no matter how innocuous it truly is and how non-evil your actions might be, it's not something that they can make room for in their belief system and to accommodate an idea like that. So, oh, hi, Temple Tarot. Thank you. Just gave us some Mooney.
Oh, is that what that is?
That's what that is.
Oh, okay, cool.
So Violet says, are you Masuki Ranu? I can't find the picture. The thumbnail here is so tiny, like a teardrop. Angela says, nope, Angela, blank like ether name, either the picture is a black and it's just the face of an angel anime character. All right. So I really appreciate that, Temple Tarot. Thank you very much. Just want to make sure. I love your star that you have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Is that an 8? Yeah, that's an 8-pointed star. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, that's 8. It's an 8-pointed star. I wasn't sure if it was a fairy star at first. Angela says, yeah, my family has cloth ears, so I don't speak to them about it. You mean closed ears? Or are they trying to be like Spock and have cloth ears on their head? I was in the grocery store and I was looking at people's ears while I was standing in line waiting for the prescription counter to acknowledge my existence and let me pick up a script for Ian. Angela says, everyone needs a friend, Violet. Sorry about your neighbor. Yeah, neighbors are sometimes not very good. Speaking of neighbors, now this is interesting. Both of the houses, one on either side of us, they both moved in like within like 5 days of each other. They have now both moved out and put their houses up for sale in the same time frame. First one, second one, within 5 days of each other. And we're sitting here thinking, maybe we're influencing them and making them uncomfortable by existing and being sandwiched in between. So, Angela says, cloth ears is a term I use for people who don't hear unless they want to. Oh, okay. Thank you. That's a term I've not heard, but I sort of was entertained anyway. But yeah, we're sitting here thinking maybe because of our wards and local witches say when they drive by our house they can feel that we're not quite in the world kind of thing. It's like they feel the veil that we've built up. So I'm wondering if our neighbors have too. So we're going to put some focus into trying to bring in people to look at the houses who would be comfortable with having us as a neighbor and not be some weird a-hole. But yeah. So that's the way that works. You never know. So, I'm sure more will come in a minute. That's the way this usually works. We got 32 people on there right now. I'm sure some of you must have some questions. Temple Tarot, do your thoughts about keeping versus the one disposing of spell ingredients, sigils, etc. That's a symbol associated with Ishtar. Oh yeah, thank you for that. What are your thoughts on that? Let me look. See if I can. I think it might depend upon the spell. Some of them you might want to bury the ingredients when you're done and so forth, but some of them they might be meant to just sort of slowly dissipate until there's no energy left. So I guess that would depend. With the sigils, I don't know. Sigils, usually people are talking about making their own sigil, like for focus and concentration. So you would use it until you got what you wanted, and then just stop using it. I'm not thinking a spirit seal would be somewhat different.
Yeah, I was trying to recall if Barden used that name in particular for the spirit seals, and I don't recall him doing so. But he could have. I know he mentioned sigils. Some places, anyway.
Angela says maybe the spell will help Violet. She seems like she needs new neighbors. Yeah, maybe so. But we're not doing a specific spell. We're just sort of putting out that vibe. You know, it's like we want to repel the people that would not want to be by us and attract the people who would. Just by, all the things I have hanging in my yard. It should be pretty clear that we're witches. So Vanessa V says, my family is Catholic too, and I just started my YouTube channel a week ago. I haven't talked about magic yet, but I'm bracing for the storm when that might explode. When you do. Are they watching your YouTube channel then, I guess? That could be tricky. Violet says, okay, Angela, smiling. There are no angels readily coming up on YouTube, and I don't have a channel. I really want to say hello. I did put my email up twice, but you can't see it. You guys, if you need to, you can send me your emails and I'll forward them to each other. And that's fine too. It really went south fast. I'm dumbfounded because I wanted so badly for it to work. You know, some people just aren't interested in having a. Some people are afraid of actually non-conflict. It's like if things aren't in conflict, they don't know what to do. They don't know where they stand. They don't understand what's going on because conflict is what they know and they're comfortable with. So maybe it's something like that. Joyce C. Jean says, it is so lonely, so that is why I'm glad to be here with y'all. Well, I'm glad that you're here too. And, you know, and it's true. We're spread out across the planet, and it's nice to have a safe space where you can actually ask a question and not be judged severely for it. Oracle Persephone says, do you think it's possible to meet someone from current life in the astral? Sorry if this has been covered already. Well, some people do have precognitive dreams and stuff like that about a mate or a partner or a friend that they're going to meet in the future, so I see no reason why not. I know that I do a lot of time travel when I'm out of body, sleeping and stuff, and at this point, what I'm looking for, of course, is like any warnings that might affect me personally or the people that I care about, my home, and that kind of stuff. But in the past, it probably had other things that I was looking for. But then again, you have to remember, just because you meet each other either in a past life or on the astral doesn't mean that they're going to fulfill the promise of.
Of course, if both parties are capable of astral traveling consciously, that makes it a lot easier.
Yeah. Violet says, I do not want to burn a sigil if I make it pretty. I don't blame you.
Well,
that's to get rid of it, to dissipate it,
well, it
to
depends.
put it into the fire element.
If you want to, if it's a fire element sigil, if it's a water element, you burn water to just destroy it, I guess. I don't know.
Crystal Irby Desia says, have you ever seen dealt a ghost tree? After I started doing the sacred tree meditation, I have realized that there is a ghost of a very old wise tree in our backyard. Actually, as a matter of fact, yes. There was a house, one of the early pioneer homes here in town, that I went out on an investigation because they were having all sorts of weird activity. And in the children's bedroom, when I went in the children's bedroom, I realized that that was where the tree was that the native woman who was raped and murdered underneath the tree, there was a residual energy of the tree in their bedroom. Yeah, that was interesting. I hadn't experienced that before. I have experienced ghost houses. That was also interesting. So I think that there's there's definitely precedent for that. And yeah, why not? The ghost house was funny. We were just shopping. We were in one of those places, like one of those big barn-like warehouse buildings or whatever, very open on the inside and bins everywhere. And, we have a fun time looking in bins and seeing what we can find. And Ian was finding all kinds of cool stuff there. And and I went through this one section and all of a sudden it was like I had cobwebs all over my face. And I thought, well, this is weird. I'm looking around. There's nothing that would have cobwebs. And suddenly I can see the floor plan of a house. And I know where I am in that floor plan. And that there used to be a house that sat there. And it was so strong because it was just so intense and visceral. I actually asked the guy who owned the place if there used to be a house there. He says, oh, yeah, he says, and I moved it into the backyard. People thought I was crazy, but I figured it's been around for 100 years. There's no reason why I shouldn't move it and keep it there. So I looked out the back window and there was the house. But he had built the big barn warehouse thingy over where it used to be. So I have no doubt that I was walking through where the walls used to stand. So it's an interesting process. Angela says, oh, thank you, Siofra. Please let's do that. And of course, I'm at siofrasmagicalcove@gmail.com, so you can both send me an email and then I'll forward them on to each other and then you'll have a way to communicate. So yes, Violet, you're welcome. And Gary says, I loved your video on the amethyst crystal spell that can work with any person or goal that you want to send positive energy. Loretta, thank you. The amethyst crystal, the the one I do on the full moon every year, or every year, every month. Yeah, and other things. Temple Tarot says, thank you for answering. You're welcome. Oracle Persephone says, thanks. Yeah, I may have met someone there I currently know in waking life while knowing them already. Cool. Vanessa V says, a friend of mine dreamt about me 1 year before we met, and she actually had a drawing of me. That's impressive. Cool. Temple Tarot says, sometimes my spells don't work until I release attachment to outcome. That kind of motivated my last question. Oh, I see. So when you're done, you're done with it. You let go of it.
Yeah, I have a lot of that too. If attachments cause me that same issue, basically, if I remain attached to what I'm doing.
Yeah, and really that's the best way to manifest something, because if you're still trying to make it happen, then you don't have the belief that it's actually happening and will happen. Sort of that kind of short circuiting your subconscious. Whoops, I went the wrong way. My finger went pop. Silver Fox says, is there an email where you can be contacted for questions outside of YouTube? Yes, Siofra's Magic Alcove at gmail.com. And I actually have it in the description of my videos. So if you can't write it down or anything, just look at any of the descriptions of any of my videos, and you'll find that embedded in the description. And also I have a Facebook page, Siofra Bradigan, and you can always send me messages through that as well. Send me a friend's request, and it might be a good idea to send me a message to let me know that you're actually one of my subscribers, so I don't think you're one of those weird people that are trolling the internet looking, the single man who's in the military with a dog looking for love. Yeah, you know what I mean. Angela says, I don't know whether a friend I hadn't met yet having a drawing of me would have me in awe or more in shock. Well, sort of a combination, I think. And thank you for sending me an email. I'm not going to check it right now. I'll check it later. Temple Tarot says, thank you. That's what I thought too. It's nice to get confirmation from people I respect. Well, you're welcome. And, in the end, it's always up to everybody what they're going to do about it. And like I said, we're all so different. We have, different ways of thinking. And I find it cool that you have an Ishtar star. Lady Ishtar was one of my earlier pagan names, and I think the first coven I was formed, I was Lady Ishtar for a while, which was kind of interesting. And someone else in the coven wanted to be Inanna. We took on goddess names and god names for like a year, something like that, just to sort of tune in to their energies, which was one of those things that one of the books we were reading recommended. So we thought, hey, let's give that a try. Angela says, oh, I managed to get the tree spirit that I told you about last week. I brought a bisque angel covered in flowers and put one hand on her trunk and another hand held the angel. Oh, that sounds lovely. That looks beautiful. Jonathan says, I have learned to use the time just when I'm falling asleep for some of my best work. I learned that from Barden and you, Siofra. Ian, I don't know if you use that time in a special way. Do you?
Yes, I do. I used to be able to, in the process of falling asleep, I used to be able to slip out of my body and go astral, but I haven't been able to do that for years and years. So yeah, I basically meditate as I'm going to sleep. Mostly at the moment it's trying to quiet my thoughts and things, since I have anxiety issues and things. So mostly just trying to be calm, keep my awareness, watch my thoughts, silence them.
So Angela said, then I asked her if she wanted to go in, and she did. She's now on my working altar. That's awesome. It's like sometimes it's all it takes is making a space and extending an invitation. You take the care to do it, and they notice. And that's the thing. It's like, some people are want to do everything by the seat of their pants, and they don't want to, have to follow certain rules or procedures or something like that, which is fine. But then there are some spirit beings that if you're going to communicate with them or connect with them, if you don't do that, then they feel that you're not serious and they won't have anything to do with you. Because it's sort of your way of proving to them, it's kind of your resume. You're giving them an idea of who you are, what you know, what you can do, and what you're willing to do, and so forth. And so I thought that was interesting. I actually was reading an article about that a couple weeks ago, and I thought that was an interesting take on that, and it resonates when it comes to that show of respect kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, so yeah. Oh, a bunch of people left. But yeah, so I guess I'll wait for the next question. Here we go. Temple Tarot says, that's awesome. I consider her my patroness. I believe she has been with me my whole life, but only in the past few years did I have a name for the energy. Yeah, I think that's often the case because, you know, when we're younger, we may not know what that energy is. And I certainly have had very specific goddess energies around me ever since I can remember from when I was little. So it is. Having a name for the energy helps us to connect with it in a different way.
Well, okay. More questions?
Yeah, I'm sure they're coming. They're probably all typing at the same time, and they'll all show up at once.
Yeah.
And then I'll have to rewind it in order to find them and figure out who'd said what when and so forth. But, you know, one of the things that I enjoy about these kinds of things is like this is the kind of conversations that Ian and I have on a regular basis. And there's different ways of communicating, and it's nice to be able to share some of that. Whoops. My computer did something strange. Jonathan says, thanks, Ian. I use the earth element to tackle my anxiety together with positive affirmations that I am calm. Would you guys mind sharing thoughts on your methods for calming down when going to sleep?
Well, usually I meditate, a special meditation before going to sleep, and that helps get me in that quiet state to start with. Always when you're meditating, you quiet your thoughts. And it's all part of Barden's first chapter, the thought control, keeping control of your thoughts, your emotions, so that you don't have them carrying on. You don't go to sleep with things from the day bothering you, that kind of thing. So nothing special. I do use the auto-suggestion and the string of knots occasionally for specific things when I'm going to bed, and that seems pretty effective.
So when I was going through a tremendous amount of crisis stuff where, you know, worrying about money, job, whatever relationships it might be, I actually bought myself some worry dolls, and that worked extremely well for me. And so they're little bitty stick figures with color thread around them for their outfits and stuff. And what I would do is each one of them, I would give them something to worry about for me so that I could sleep. And then I knew that my worries were being paid attention to, and that helped me to let go of them when I was trying to go to sleep. So
I might add that some of my difficulty with calming down is due to the fact that I have apparently a genetic predisposition or something to anxiety, and that makes me pretty uncalm. I worry about little things a huge amount sometimes.
yeah, he had a breakthrough a while back. He came running out and he says, "You'll never guess what? I'm now worried about the fact that I'm not worrying enough." And I thought that was a positive thing. So Leanne says, good evening. Oh, I'm so happy I've caught you live. I'm new to your channel and I love it. Well, welcome, Leanne, and we're glad to have you with us. Jonathan says, hi, Leanne. Violet says, I wanted to tell you I was artistically laminating doors and giant numbers of my tree of life inside of me. Everything has a packet with many associations in files and things, like each tarot, etc. Yeah, there's lots of associations.
That was one of the things that Crowley thought was important to do. He walked around trying to attribute everything he could to the tree of life or a path on the tree of life, depending on the Hebrew letters and things like that. It is a good way to learn things, and once you learn the aspects, the tree of life makes a great filing cabinet to poke different things in and figure out how they're attributed.
It's got a lot of good associations that you can use to help remember stuff. So Luna says, I keep going out to the astral in my sleep and cannot remember where I've been, just know about it as I re-enter my body. Any tips to move forward, please? Well, it's tricky. There's no doubt about it. Start to lucid dream, and that might help. If you can wake yourself up in a dream, then you might be able to wake yourself up in the astral. So some of the tips for lucid dreaming are things like asking yourself something that you do regularly during the day. When you do it, am I dreaming? Am I dreaming? Am I dreaming? Whether it's looking at a watch, walking through a door, some activity that is fairly familiar to you. And then when you dream about it in a dream, it'll trigger that question, am I dreaming? And then you'll usually become lucid and wake up in it. Because it's like, it's a, dreams are hard enough to remember as it is because of the kinds of brain cells that we use to remember them. They kind of self-erase as we wake up. So in order to kind of shift things, I have a funny thing that I do when I have an important dream. I then dream about telling someone in another dream about the dream that I just had. And then the next dream, the same thing. I keep retelling the dream in my sleep. So when I wake up, I remember what it was. And it's always fascinating. Jacqueline says, I tell myself stories to fall asleep, dragons and elves, kind of a cross between Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings. That sounds like fun.
I might add one thing to
To Luna?
Jacqueline's question, the previous one. That's that trying to consciously astral travel and such will build up that ability to remember also.
That's Luna's question.
Yeah. Oh, that's not what I said. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, Luna. What I meant.
Yep.
So, yeah.
So Temple Tarot says, ah, yeah, the hypnagogic state. I've had a lot of crazy experiences within that. Met beings, kundalini awakenings, insights. This is true. Sometimes really interesting things happen in that state. Leanne says, hi, Jonathan. Violet says, ha, ha, ha. You guys are awesome. Vanessa V says, I have a question, but I'm not sure how to formulate it. Well, give it a shot and we'll see if we can figure it out. Violet says, I love how free you are, how free you share about your worries, Ian. I worry like crazy. Yeah. Silver Fox says, I'm undergoing a spiritual awakening. Sometimes it feels like an internal battle and it makes my mind too rapid to process anything. Do y'all have any advice to make the awakening process easier? Do some quiet stuff to take care of yourself and give yourself a break. Ritual baths are nice. You can put some of the chaotic energy into the water, help ground yourself with that. Eat something to help yourself ground a little bit, because you don't want to burn yourself out. Because there is danger in the process when we're going through it. If we go through it too quickly, it's hard to assimilate all that information, and so grounding yourself out with daily things, things you can touch and taste and feel and see and so forth is a good method to help keep you in your life and in your body while you're going through that. You have any other suggestions?
Oh, not really. I mean, there's a lot of types of spiritual awakenings, so I don't know. If it were a more specific question, I might have some, but
okay.
That sounds like a good answer to
Vanessa
me.
V says, oh, that's the best advice I've ever heard on lucid dreaming. Well, good. I'm glad. Luna says, thanks for the advice, Siofra and Ian. When I'm lucid dreaming and I realize I'm dreaming, I'm so excited and pleased I've realized I immediately wake up. Well, that's not uncommon, so you'll get used to it. So you just keep on practicing. That's a nice thing. You get to try it every night when you go to sleep. So there's an endless supply of opportunity, since we have to have sleep in order to survive.
That's another thing I haven't been able to work with. I mean, I try remembering my dreams and writing them down and stuff, and it's just not working. But then I had a serious insomnia problem until just a few years back.
So Jonathan says, please tell me that the gnomes are still visiting you and they aren't just asking whether you can tell them apart. Yes, they are still visiting me. I've had a few visitations in the last while. They haven't asked me any questions of late. So apparently they've accepted the fact that I can see them and I can tell them apart. So I don't know where we go from here. I guess we shall see. But I think it was last night, just before I went to sleep, I saw a new one that had dark curly hair, and it wasn't a gnome, it was something else. But I didn't, it didn't stick around long enough for me to actually see. But interestingly enough, last night, what I had a problem breathing last night. I have a damaged nerve, the vagus nerve, which goes between the skull, comes out of your brain and goes right at the base of your skull, down your spine. And every so often, my skull shifts or something, and it presses on that nerve, and then if I can breathe when I'm awake, but if I'm asleep, I start to stop breathing, and my body has come up with an early warning system for when that happens, and I start to fall asleep. All of a sudden, it's like wake up, and so that happened several times before I figured out what was going on last night, and so I had to sit up in order to and drink water and do all this other stuff, and then I was thinking, what can I do? How can I get this to work better? And I picked up my piece of blue kyanite, the raw kyanite that I have, the one that visited me and showed me its form, and held that, and it seemed to actually open up my airways, and because it's connected to air itself as an element, it seems. So that was just sort of an interesting little thing that happened. I forgot to tell you about this morning. It was like, wow, and it worked, and then I fell asleep. So that was pretty cool. So Angela says, used to have insomnia. Meditation helped. I slept like a rock for years since. What technically is a gnome? An earth spirit, a elemental of the earth zone, earth being, earth element.
Yeah, it deals with the earth element, to reside in the earth element.
They live underground. It's sort of like, if you look at the four elementals, you've got the gnomes, the sylphs, the undines, and the salamanders. And they're like the beings of the element itself. And the gnomes are the version of the earth element that you can interact with and see and communicate with, and so forth. And then there's other beings that might be short and stocky that aren't gnomes, different types like of fairies, right?
But the gnomes are the one, and that means they're also experts in that element, the earth element, but they probably won't be able to tell you much about any of the others or help you with earth related things.
One hopes at some point they'll lead us to a buried treasure, because they know where they all are. So Louise says, how do you build up your site, or do you just have it? Well, that's one of the exercises I do when I'm just getting ready to go to bed, because the lights are dim, and even before I turn out my light, when I cast my circle, I can see the energy that I'm using. I can see I'm inscribing the pentagram in the air, and I can see the energy coming out of my fingers. That's when I practice looking at my aura and looking through my hand, and usually I first see like this sort of a dark purple kind of thing between my fingers, and then it sort of spreads out, and then as I start looking at it more, looking past it, then I see this really vivid green. Apparently this green is my main color. And then when I move my hand, it's like my green energy stays behind and follows my hand slower. It's sort of like interesting, sort of like, I guess, trails or something like that. And it's a good time to practice that kind of stuff, to get used to the idea of seeing things that you're told aren't supposed to be there. You have to sort of retrain your mind and your brain to accept input of a type that you have trained yourself out of being able to receive. Most of us, when we're kids, can see that kind of stuff fairly readily, and then our parents tell us it's not real, or they tell us not to talk about it, or we get scared and we don't want to see it anymore, whatever, any number of things that can happen. And then if you want to get back into that state, you have to just start to tell your brain that you don't want it to sort of filter the input, because the stuff that we see is filtered information. We have decided what we need to know, and there's always like a blind spot. Everyone has a blind spot that there's never anything there, but our brain fills it in, so we never see the blind spot. Sometimes I sit over where I can see over water, whether it's the ocean or a lake, and I'll gaze over the top of the water and in the daytime, and soften my eyes and try and let myself see the energy that's floating up and about and around the water. and try to not let my brain filter the information so that I can gain access back to some of that stuff that was really natural when I was younger. Not being afraid of what you're seeing is a real key thing. Because if you see it and then you're startled and you're scared and you don't want to see it again, you sort of shut yourself down. So you got to be nice and kind to yourself and not try to overwhelm your senses. But doing your aura is a good, safe one because it's something that you carry with you all the time. And you can like do it against a blank wall. I can't do things against a white wall. I hallucinate against a white wall. It's like I see all sorts of stuff. They're flying around everywhere. So I have to have like a colored wall, but it's a single color kind of thing. And that works for me. So maybe that'll help. So Angela says, I have seen gnomes showing up in the store as in garden things popping up a lot. I wonder where the basis comes from. It's probably the same place. It's like the story of gnomes just sort of like in cultural imagination all around the world, and somebody thought, hey, I could probably make money selling some for your garden. So Jonathan says, do you use crystals in your Reiki? In my office, I do. I've got like a large amethyst underneath my table, and then I have a very large clear quartz crystal thing in my bookcase, I guess. And then I have a really wonderful smoky quartz formation on the floor. So I've created an energy system, like the quartz brings in a lot of raw energy, the amethyst smooths it out and puts it into the table, and then the smoky quartz drains any negative energy that's coming out of the client. But I don't have to. I mean, Reiki is something I can do just any time. We're doing a Reiki session for an infant. I have to check with Jade and find out how the infant is doing. That they had to resuscitate here and send up to the Children's Hospital up in Portland. And so, as a Reiki master, I can send healing energy through a distance, and it doesn't matter. And you can also send it through time, which every so often I send it to my younger self to try and help keep my younger self from losing hope about what's going to happen in the future, since time doesn't really exist linearly. Oh, that's a weird word. Try and say without twisting your tongue. So you can do that too. But yeah. Vanessa says, so I've been having this intense longing for the past months to connect with the spirit realm, the Fae, she goddesses. I've been visited by a couple too, which is good.
Miss Angela's.
Salamander as the six-legged fiery lizard thing from some mythology. Yes.
Pretty much.
Pretty much. They were supposed to be able to live in volcanoes. So I'm pretty sure they weren't actual living salamanders, because I don't think a volcano could handle them, or they couldn't handle a volcano.
Right, and I don't know, the fire spirits I've run across haven't looked like salamanders, but that's still the term used.
Well, you have the fire sprite, and
yes,
so there's probably other beings, and then the Jinn, which is the head of
right.
it, and depending on your mythology, culture, and stuff like that, yeah, those guys are extremely scary to some cultural references.
Well, like all of them, depending on which one, you don't want a raging fire getting loose in your house or something.
Well, that's true. Jonathan says, I'll ask because Adam isn't here tonight. I was wondering this week, because he was asking about servitors, how much danger do you see in creating an elemental?
Well, if you follow Barden's recommendations, I would say none. But those recommendations include such things as being able or willing and able to just destroy the elemental if it starts giving you a hard time or starts getting out of your control. And that's not likely to happen either unless you've done something like, maybe if you make an elemental and then leave it alone and do nothing with it for 3 or 4 years, it might escape from its home if it's not shielded in silk, and then go vampirize something when it gets low on energy. And he mentions that as one of the potential hazards, but that's pretty easy to prevent. You keep the thing wrapped in silk. An easy way to destroy it is if it's out of its body and you put silk over the body, then it will destroy it.
If you give it a death date, it'll...
Yeah, and that's what he recommends. He recommends always setting them up with a death date, and that can either be like an exact date, like January 30th, 2024 or something, or you can put it for like as long as you are alive and maintain good control over it, that kind of thing, which is what I like to do more, because that means that if I'm dead, then all of my magical things aren't going to accidentally hurt somebody by somebody getting hit by a charge that he didn't expect or anything. You know, whoever's going to have to take care of my things after death, that type of thing. So they'll just kind of stop working. I've got most of my things charged up that way, and that way also I charge it that if I lose it, generally if I no longer own it, so if I've lost it permanently or something, it becomes decharged. But if you follow Martin's recommendations, the only real danger you're in is depending on what you use the elemental for. If your motives are noble and pure, and that's what you're using the elemental for, you're not going to have any problems. If not, the only danger is receiving the karma that you deserve for doing a thing.
That's not noble and pure.
Right. So that's basically it, you know. Just follow those cautions so that they don't get away from you and vampirize on somebody, and then, you always call them back to their body and then wrap them in silk, and that'll just maintain them for as long as you keep them wrapped in silk. So you don't have to worry about them doing things like when they aren't supposed to or whatever. So, yeah, so not really a whole lot of danger if you just don't get so fond of it you aren't willing to destroy it.
So Vanessa V continued her question, but although I long to connect, I am also afraid. I think the fear comes from things my mom has told me, like I cannot trust spirits, only my higher self. Well, that is part of the shadow work that we all have to do, is to look at these assumptions about reality and how everything works, pick them apart, and sort of examine them, and then make a determination as to whether or not that's something that's good for you to continue to believe, or something you want to experiment with not believing, or something that you think now is no longer valid and is silly, and why would you care, about that? So it's the stuff that's stuck in our subconscious that actually keeps us from doing a lot of things. Looks like she has more of that too down there. Angela says, do you have a favorite crystal that you feel your collection wouldn't be complete without? No, I like them all too much. I have a pile now of amethysts and selenite, and every time I go to a rock show, I find another crystal I'm interested in. And
that's one of those things that happens as you get older. You collect more things.
I have stones, crystals that were given to me in a meaningful ritual or a place in my life that I picked up, and yeah, it's just like I'm not trying to collect specific crystals. It's just the ones that I am attracted to and end up liking, and then they come to me, and then sometimes I work with them. Sometimes I can work with them for a couple of days and then they disappear for 3 months. I have one stone that's doing that to me right now. I found it again. I'm like, well, there you are. And then I worked with it for a few days and now I don't know where it is anymore, So Vanessa V says it feels like she sees other spirits as evil or that they just want to trick us. I feel it comes from her Catholic background, although she isn't Catholic anymore. Oh, absolutely. That is definitely one of the beliefs that they have. Because everything is out to trick you if you're, not just Catholic, but almost any branch of Christianity, and you can't trust them because they're emissaries of evil, and even if they look beautiful and they can do wondrous things, that doesn't mean they're not evil either, which is like the worst thing I think that they put in. The idea that you can't trust your own instincts, that there's no way for you to depend upon your own senses. That's why you have to have an intermediary tell you what is and what isn't safe. Like I said before, I don't pay attention to a lot of what people believe because we're still pretty much not very bright when it comes down to how the universe actually works and what's really going on around us. And so people's opinions have less weight to me now. I'm sure I did have that for a while as well, when I thought I was evil and evil would take over me and stuff like that.
I lost the chat. There it is.
So Angela says, "Oh my, I hope the baby was okay." I do too, because my daughter hasn't told me yet, which is really annoying. She's done that to me before, where I was doing a healing on a child she asked me to care for, and then like suddenly I couldn't find the baby, and I'm calling her up, "What's going on? Is the baby dead?" "Oh no, it got better. They sent it home." I'm like, "Well, thanks. Thanks for letting me know." That's what I'm going to have to ask her. Vanessa V says, but she tends to ask Father Gind for things on her meditations, which crashes a bit with me because I don't want to ask things. Want to, but I want to build relationships with other beings. Yeah, so you have to, it has to fit for you. And you're stuck with what you were taught when you were little, what you learned in school, what you were exposed to when you went to church, if you did, and then you have to go in there, find them, root them out, like I said, examine, reevaluate, and then come to a conclusion. You're going to keep it for a while and then reevaluate again later, or you're going to work to get rid of it. So Jonathan says, you're talking about sending magic through time while I'm typing this. I have done that with some success. I use concentration on the Akasha principle to do it. How do you guys do it? It's probably similar.
Yeah, basically that's it. The third degree of Reiki connects you with the ability to transmit it anywhere, and that's basically through the Akasha. Gives you the ability to work with the Reiki that way. So yeah, Akasha.
Yeah, that would be the element that you would use in order to connect through time.
Yeah.
Vanessa says, anyway, long story here. Do you have any advice on how to not I break the cycle and battle between my longing and to connect and my fear? Well, yeah, that's the tricky thing, though, is you've got to really figure out ways of challenging it. One of the ways, I guess, that I did that when I started looking into other philosophies, other religions, other spiritual practices. So in fourth grade, they introduced me to Greek mythology. That blew my mind wide open. The fact that people used to have a different belief, had different gods and goddesses, not just the god I was being taught about, just made my brain sort of explode in about 1,000 different directions, because if they did it once, then we could do it again. That meant that this was a flexible thing. It's not like a scientific fact, like we have a round planet and we have gravity and we're hurtling through space around a sun. It's like this is something that is changeable, malleable, and has been changed before, so could be changed again. So reading stories about the different goddesses and gods and spirits and mythologies and so forth was very helpful, because it exposed me to a whole bunch of different notions, even before I got to the point where I could get in there and root it all out. And then doing rituals to help replace it. Starhawk says that it's not enough to reject a religion or a philosophy, because just rejecting it doesn't change anything. It just leaves a vacuum where it used to be. And the only way to completely get rid of it is to replace it with something completely different. And so that's the process. You do the rituals, you do the exercises, you go into nature, you experience something like with a tree and its energy, and discover that it is real and it's not evil, and you're not alone. Life is not evil. Life is not intrinsically good or bad, but it certainly is definitely not evil. And life exists and it's there. And so exposing yourself to that kind of stuff can only help. It's the only thing I can think of. It's like, it's a long process. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not instantaneous. But that's what I did. The first time I had a dream about running into a group of Christians in my dream and then using witchcraft to make them go away, I was pretty excited. I thought that was awesome. And then meeting a god and a goddess in the dream state was just like, I started dreaming pagan instead of Christian. I was very thrilled. And so, you can tell how much progress you're making based on those things. And then being reasonable about what's to be afraid of. People lie to us all the time. You can't trust most people. So, are they all evil? Or just irresponsible? I mean, you have to be more careful about the people in your life than you do about the spirits, because spirits are attracted to you for where you're at. I mean, in a natural state, you're going to attract, if you're thinking along positive lines and you're working on yourself and you're trying to become more who you are and your true nature, the spirits that are going to be attracted to you are going to be compatible with that. And it's only in Christianity and other mythologies that the evil ones are the ones that are attracted to the good people to try and destroy them. In reality, that's not really the case, unless you have created that kind of scenario in your head. So I guess that's about all I have to say about that at the moment. So she said, sorry about the long rambling typos. Yeah. So Jonathan says, are you guys responsible with your elemental? Sounds like you're strict with death dates. Yes.
Well, yeah, I can go on for a minute or so about that, because the death dates are not just to keep the elemental from getting out of control. Let me start with that. Setting up a ending time period for your elemental helps it to materialize down and be able to function more readily, materially and physically accomplish things, which is a whole other subject. But so anything you charge up, whether it be an amulet or anything, should have an ending date that it will die. And like I say, in that case, I use that like on my wands and things, because by setting up an end date, and that end date can be when you yourself die, which is usually how I set up my tools and things like that. With a little elemental, generally I just kind of use them for a while and destroy them, so I don't necessarily set up death dates so much, but I do impress on them that if I die or something, then that's their death date. So that is fairly strongly impressed on them. And means of death is good to impress upon them, like if you destroy the body, whatever you make your elemental in, whether it's a clay statue or whatever, that will kill the elemental. So yeah, actually very careful with them, and then also don't just leave them out of a piece of silk when they're not doing anything. Wrap silk around them, keep the charge in, keep everything all copacetic, and then worry about it if you need to. I've had a couple die off on me before naturally because I didn't give them a recharge of energy, but as far as I know, that's the only issue I've had. Chances are pretty good that you're not going to get one so powerful you need to worry about it. I mean, it takes a pretty good and practiced magician with a lot of ability to be able to make one effective.
And by then you know how to keep yourself safe. One hopes. So Temple Tarot says, I have so many beautiful feathers. Red tail, hawk, owl, turkey. Do either of you have recommendations on how to use them in spellwork or ritual? I tend to use them for connections to the animal. Like I have a close connection with the crows and the ravens, and they have given me some feathers that were very special. The one in the raven feather in particular that I have was given to me like as a transformative thing that fell out of the sky that was white and turned black when it landed. So that one is like a different kind of a feather, but I've used them to put on my staff to work with an element, to connect with the animal, the bird. I have the crows give me feathers for protection, so I use wing feathers as a natural protective talisman. I hang in my car on the mirror, and I wrap it in red thread because that says protection to me. And then their tail feathers I do other things with. So it's really going to depend upon your practices and so forth. And feathers can sometimes bring specific energy. Like when I was in a sweat lodge and was having some difficulty in the sweat lodge, I was like starting to go out of my body and stuff. The sweat leader, she gave me an eel feather, and I thought, oh yay, this is great, I'm going to get to fly. And it grounded the heck out of me, and I was completely back in my body. So that was an unexpected result, because that's not what I thought it would do. So I love feathers. I decorate things with feathers, costumes with feathers. They're just cool. So Vanessa said, probably would be better if I write an email. This thing types different from what I'm writing. Luna says, I'm sitting here darning socks, and with each stitch I state my intention to reinforce it. This is the last time I'll need to darn these socks. Probably means that I'll throw them away next time. It probably does. Jonathan says, Angela, Siofra lights up when I mention lapis. Oh yes, I love the lapis. Angela says, crystal disappearo? Yep. Oh, lapis is pretty. Yes, it was one of my early favorites. I think my very early favorite was amethyst, and then lapis came in after that. Angela says, my family said Catholics don't believe in ghosts, the dead, or are in heaven, or they're demons. I said, so what's a Holy Spirit? Then there was a super long silence and a subject change. They don't like that question. A lot of people ask that question. You think they'd have an answer by now. It was the last conversation I had on the subject with them. This is true. Gary says, or Loretta, I love my worry dolls. Forgot I had them. So awesome. Also, I found my mom's dollhouse from the 50s. Thinking of doing a spell to fix my own house. Could that work? Any ideas? P.S. That was Loretta asking. Yeah, I figured that was the case. Well, it sounds like a good idea to me. I mean, if you tell the dollhouse you name it your house, and as you fix the things that are broken on your house, you're visualizing having the funds and the ability and the materials and so forth in order to fix your house in the real world. That seems like that would be sympathetic magic for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't see any reason why not.
I agree.
So Jonathan says, thanks, Ian. I never considered putting limits on my other tools. That's something to consider. Angela says, give it time, sending positive energy to protect you, Violet. Temple says, feathers are cool. Thank you. Yes, they are. They're very cool. I saw some kind of a hawk this morning on the way to the store, but I couldn't stop the car long enough to look and see what it was exactly. Thought it might have been an osprey, but I wasn't sure from the wing configuration.
We missed a couple things.
Okay.
One was from Crystal Irby. It says, do elementals react to being told when they are going to die? I mean, do they fear death? Well, the ones you create, not so much, but they can get a survival instinct. So it depends on how good you are at making elementals and how smart you can make them. If you make one smart enough that it's causing you problems, then it will have a self-protection desire. I don't think they fear death as such like that, at least the ones you make. But they do have a self-preservation feeling. So, yeah, I don't know any way to make that more pleasant. If you're going to work with an elemental, you have to be willing to kill it. I don't think if you've created the thing in the first place, I don't think it's the same thing as like killing a pre-existing being at all.
Well, right, and really, in killing it, what you're doing is just joining it back with its element.
Back with its element, yes.
So it's not like death, death. It's just like different form.
Yeah, they're almost like a...
You move your water. The light is... Thank you. Blinding my eye. Okay. So I realize I missed a whole bunch of stuff here. Violet says, how on earth is it that I've attracted a cruddy, awful, non-communicative neighbor everywhere I go? I'm so nice in my heart. Bad karma somehow? Or an angry, fiery djinn that follows me around from a curse? Because there's just more nasty people in the world than there are nice ones. It's my assumption. Because we had nasty neighbors too. It's like, there's just sort of more of them than there are nice people. And Angela says, perhaps ask Medusa to help you out. Bad neighbors happen to everyone. And then there's the one from Crystal. Vanessa says, thank you so much. Yes. I've been into mythology and ancient civilizations since I was little. This week I've been working on building altars for the goddesses I feel drawn to. Awesome. Apparently my finger had done a thingy. And Angela says, give it time, sending positive energy to protect you, Violet. Vanessa V says, I felt their support in some dreams. They called me sister and said I need to reclaim my powers as an ancient goddess, whatever that means, that they'd wait for me until I did. Well, yeah, it sort of means exactly what it says. You need to connect to that goddess.
Yeah, which goddesses?
Well, they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Temple says, oh, I love the dollhouse idea. I'm going to use that. And Vanessa says, but I feel it is egocentric to even think that. Well, if you're connecting to a goddess and merging with a goddess energy, that doesn't mean you're going to stay a goddess 100% of the time. So ego can get controlled that way, you know. So you just remember, you're only there temporarily and get this, boo, experience, and then you're back to being you.
Yeah, and that's kind of the point, too, is you're feeling like a goddess, a genuine goddess wouldn't have any feelings of insufficiency or self-worth, or I shouldn't be doing this. So my suggestion would be just be the goddess while you're working with that, and then be not the goddess when you're not, and just make a clear distinction. When you're the goddess, just be the goddess 100%. Don't worry about ego. Just be the goddess, whatever that brings to you.
Yeah, one of the exercises that I've read that you can do to try and help with that, if you're trying to actually invoke the goddess energy or God energy into your body, is to visualize that specific deity materialized behind you and try to really connect with that. And then when you feel ready, take a step back into the energy. And so then you sort of are joining with the energy and becoming one with the energy for a period of time. And then when you're have had enough or the energy is wane or something like that, then step forward and then you're stepping out of the energy. So that's a one method that you can use. It seems like that would probably work pretty well, especially if you're by yourself. So Jonathan wonders if Vanessa would share some of the goddesses that she's been working with. I guess we'll see if she does. So I want to tell everybody that YouTube has not been giving me everybody's comments, not on this, but on the videos. Because every so often I'll go in like days in a row and there'll be no comments that are new that I'm supposed to like approve and respond to. And then one day I'll go in and it'll be filled with them from all over the place, and they're from different time periods and so forth. So if you send me something that way and you don't get a response, it's not me, it's YouTube doing their, I don't know, deciding whose time is worth more. I don't know. However their algorithms work out there for letting things through. But I'm like, you know.
Yeah, probably just some website glitches.
Yeah, who knows? I'm sure it's nothing personal. But hey. And yeah, becoming a goddess is certainly an interesting experience. To feel that total energy of connection to things and understanding of everything around you.
Yeah, well, that has to be one of the main things, is to let, like, you are the goddess, you're not worried about your ego, you portray the goddess. Yeah, so I was gonna add something there, but I lost the train of thought, sorry.
Oh well, these things happen, being human and all.
Yes, I guess that got me triggered, as being human. When you're being the goddess, you're being the goddess, and you know, depending. I mean, you don't want to go around like that all the time, or you get taken over.
Right, there's like a woman in Oregon.
Wolf Creek.
In Wolf Creek.
Don't know if she's still
there.
there.
We don't know if she's still there, but her entire life has been channeling a deity from Babylon or something, Babylonian.
Yeah. Something like that, yeah. And she's basically gave up herself to that being.
And that's all she does, that's all she is, that's all she does. You know, it's like, that's not for me, for sure. I like to be an individual, independent, thinking being on my own right, and then, you know, have connections when I'm ready. It's sort of like opening your door up wide to people just to come in, and then they set up a home in your house and they start eating your food, and it's like, really, if you need to have good boundaries. Vanessa V says, thanks a lot, both. That is super helpful. Good. And the first time it really works, it's pretty shocking. Jonathan says, it's a great experience bringing the god or goddess energy into yourself. I think it's healthy. It's like seeing your potentials. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. Yeah. You just don't want to overdo it.
And there's no reason why you can't, it's like, it's not about whatever your identity, male or female, or your sexual identity, male or female or other. It's about that opening up and connecting to that, so you can connect to different types. I mean, you don't have to connect to just a goddess if you're a woman, and just a god if you're a man.
I want to point out that these things can actually bring in things that you were previously unaware of, and get energies functioning in you that previously weren't functioning. So it's not, I mean, it can be just a mental experience, but it can be actually very experiential and useful in incorporating certain abilities that the deity has, or things like that, depending on which deity and what. It's like every deity is a slightly limited version of the entire deity, with omnipotence, omnipresence.
It's one of the things I like about them. You can get different aspects of that divine energy.
Yeah, that's the way I look at it. They narrow down the aspects, instead of trying to throw the whole kitchen sink at something, you can be a lot more precise and aim at your target.
Sometimes Medusa is good, sometimes Aphrodite is good, sometimes the Dagda is good. It just really all depends on what's going on, what's happening, what kind of energies you need. Because they all have their own focused sort of field, I guess, would be a way of looking at that.
Yeah, the ones I work with are, there are several female ones. There's Yemaya I work with a little bit, even though I'm not into Santeria, but we seem to have a certain affinity. And then Durga, the goddess Kali, who can be frightening, so she's not recommended for the faint of heart. But there's also the Kundalini Shakti as a deity, which is another female aspect that deals specifically with the Kundalini. Those are the major ones.
I mean, I've got all kinds.
I just throwing that in there
because
those are the goddesses such that I work with, and try to draw their energy into myself in general.
I think it helps us become more rounded people.
Well, yeah, and people need to, it's helpful if they have a little bit of understanding of their deity. For instance, Kali has a lot of that frightening stuff, is to remove your limitations. She's very fierce at removing your limitations. And if your limitation is fear, well, apparently she'll relieve you of it, but yeah, I don't know if I'd want her teaching me to be fearless. What I'm not sure what kind of
things you might do under the influence.
Yeah, what that might mean, but
so Vanessa says Guinevere, Isis, the Morrigan, Caradwyn, Hecate, Danu, Kalik, the god Lu. Jonathan says, that's cool. I was thinking your input might inspire others here. I recommend Aphrodite freely. Being a man, inviting her into myself was mind-blowing.
Yeah, there's a whole aspect of goddess worship that way. There was a Swami Ramakrishna who had pretty much realized 2 or 3 different goddesses to the point where they came down and talked to him and would do things. And there are rumors, which seem to be true no matter how far-fetched they seem, that occasionally some of these deities would actually come down and take the offerings given to them and personally accept them. And there seem to be a few cases of that mentioned in some of the old books that seem to be legitimate. Not so old books, from like 1960s, 1940s, from over in India. So, If it's not true, I don't think the people just made it up. I think they perceived something.
So Violet says, it dawned on me that I might actually have a little arachne in me for some pictures and individual arachne experience with one too. I had, whoops, I lost it. I had never thought of it until I met Angela here. You guys are both so fun, and I'm so glad you share your time. Thank you. And Angela says, I only recently did invocation work. It was very lovely to invoke arachne for protection. The energy was strong and lovely. It took a long time to feel safe to let someone in my body. Danny says, hello from Kentucky. Hi, Danny. You're joining us just as we're about ready to go away. You need to come earlier next time at 2 o'clock is when we start. Angela says, you should reach out to her, Violet, if you feel tugged. I've never known her to be dangerous. Like many says, she has always been kind to me.
Well, that's kind of the experience I found out with a lot of them. Like, for instance, Kali. I mean, I wouldn't want to get on her bad side, but I haven't tried to, and everything's been copacetic so far.
Yeah, she's very protective of women, and apparently that was one of the challenges, was as a man, if you weren't nice to women.
But I feel
and
very
we
protective of
trouble.
women. I feel very protective of women anyway, so that probably helps.
So Vanessa V says, thank you, Jonathan. I think I will. I actually have a little statue of the Venus of the Nile. I love that painting by Botticelli. And Violet says, thanks, Angela. Okay, so we're at the end of our show. And so if you need any questions, definitely. Sophia says, hello from Brooklyn. This has been a great chat to listen to. Thank you for checking in. And D-Lo says, quick question, what could it mean when I keep seeing snakes in my dreams? Look up Kundalini, and we'll get back to you next time, and you can ask more questions.
Yeah, specifically king cobras. The cobra is associated with Kundalini.
And snakes are associated with wisdom and goddess energy, so.
And rebirth, since they shed their skin.
Right, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
JM says, it's bedtime here in the UK. Good night, all. Bye, good night, everybody. Thank you for being here. This has been lovely as usual.